Bentornati a Chin Radio TV International. So wonderful to have you on the program again. So, Mr. Prime Minister, let me tell you that yesterday you made history by delivering a formal apology. Your message was an emotional one that acknowledged the injustices that befell the Canadians of Italian origin at the beginning of World War II. And your message was made even more poignant because you told the story of Giuseppe Visocchi and what happened to him. And the story connected, as it did with me, but many within the Italian community on a very personal level. And I wanted to ask you, was his story and of course the many other stories that you heard personal to you? And is that what moved you to present this formal apology over 80 years after the Second World War?
Well, that's a great question, Lenny. I mean, first of all, there have been so many Italian Canadians, MPs, community leaders, community organizations who've been pushing for this over the years. And yes, it's about recognizing a historic injustice, but it also is and always has been about the families, about these stories, about kids' memories of seeing their father ripped away from them in the middle of a random day with no explanation, going through, in some cases, years of shame, of deprivation because of the difficulty of the internment, and then further generations of a shared shame of, I don't think they did anything wrong, but the country treated them wrongly. And there is a weight that you hear on these families every time I hear these stories. And I think yesterday we were able to lift off some of that burden, that weight that has been sitting in a shameful way on so many families by recognizing that the government shouldn't have done that without due process, shouldn't have engaged in the way it did, and that we are sorry for that. I think that was really important, yes, to recognize the past and pledge to do better in the future, but it was really important for a whole bunch of families who have lived with this far too long on their own.
And to that point, you went on describing Canadians of Italian origin that were unjustly interned in that period. You chose words like courage, resilience, and strength, because after the war, you said that upon their release, they stayed in Canada and they went to work and they began to rebuild their lives. And so these are remarkable qualities inherent in that generation. I wanted to ask you, do you think that these same qualities are inherent in today's generation of Canadians of Italian origin?
Well, I think we're seeing that with Canadians as we go through this very difficult COVID pandemic. But that is the element of the stories that just touched me so much, and that I feel we can draw so much of a lesson from and so much strength from, that even after this injustice, even after years of difficulty in picking up the pieces of their lives, of trying to find new jobs, trying to start new businesses where everything had been lost before, these families were raised with a dedication and a faith in the Canadian ideals, even though they had fallen short in their cases. This idea of a commitment to country that has done you wrong and that you continue to believe in is an incredibly powerful one. I think these days we see people very much reacting and polarized when things go wrong. But it's easy to love your country when things are going well, when you're proud, when your hockey team is winning, when money's flowing in, when communities are doing well. It's so much harder to stay true and faithful to the ideals of a country when things are not going well, when you feel let out on your own, when you feel particularly challenged. And that inspiration is something that isn't just impressive when you look back. It's more necessary now than ever in the Italian community, but in all communities. This is a difficult world we live in with lots of different challenges around us. And certainly the uncertainty of COVID has been exhausting for everyone. But to continue to say, no, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in this country we're building. I believe in the values that we stand for collectively as Canadians with and because of our incredible diversity. That's a challenge, but it's one that I think this apology comes in at the right moment for, not just for the Italian community, but for all Canadians.
You know, and it leads me right into my next question. You talk about the diversity of this great country, because yesterday was an inspiring moment, because in the House of Commons, when we heard support from so many, all of the party leaders for the message that you delivered. And, you know, we bragged often about multiculturalism and Canada being unique in the world, and nothing could be more true than what we're experiencing today. And I wanted to ask you your opinion about what have we learned up until now, and especially after the apology and seeing the party leaders come together in unison on this. What have we learned going forward as Canadians living in a multicultural society?
Well, I think the importance of separating Canadians of all sorts of different origins from what's going on elsewhere in the world. I mean, we have a perfect example right now that I hope people were listening to the apology, even as some people were saying the words. You know, there are, for example, a lot of concerns around China and how it's detained arbitrarily to Canadians, and how its government is sometimes behaving on the world stage. That is right and fair that we have concerns and criticisms towards China, but that we be taking that out in any way on Chinese Canadians with a rise in anti-Asian racism that we're seeing through this pandemic is not right. And that's not something from 50 years ago or 80 years ago. That's something from this year. And remembering that we need to be open and generous and respectful and compassionate towards Canadians of diverse origins is something that a time of populism, of rise of authoritarianism, of polarizing social media is more important than ever. And I know the Italian community, not just through internments, but in the post-World War years, where things were difficult, and you know, every Italian family has stories of terrible discrimination that their nonna or great-grandparents went through when they first arrived in Canada. And yet today it is a community that is as integrated and vibrant and as Canadian, while still being so proudly Italian, that you know, we see what can be achieved in this country when you push through that and get beyond the differences. And that is something that we've done in the past that unfortunately is getting a little harder today for a whole bunch of different reasons. And that's why this apology comes at, I mean, it probably comes later than many Italian Canadians would have liked, but it comes at a good moment for the country to really say, you know what? These are things that we still have to be aware of, still have to be thoughtful about. Canada's not a country that happened by accident. And it's not a country that won't continue without effort. It's a country that we have to keep building every single day in the choices we make to be there for each other, to support each other, to stand up for one another, stand up for the right thing, even when it's difficult. Because everywhere we look, people are encouraging us to be easy about this or easy about that. No. We have to do the difficult things sometimes. And that's what this apology was. But that's also what we need to be doing as we get through this pandemic and into building back better in the coming years.
You continue to inspire me with your passion, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Lenny.
I wanted to mention that your Italian caucus, I know, was instrumental in supporting you in bringing a resolve to bring this formal apology to the House, which I think was very significant. And then I just wanted to mention in particular Minister Marco Mendicino, and of course MP Francesco Cibara. And you spoke Italian beautifully. Justin, and I wondered if they, along with the Italian caucus and Chrystia Freeland, coached you in your Italian.
It's amazing to see how many people speak Italian in our caucus. Not just the obvious Italian Canadian MPs, but you're right, Chrystia Freeland, our industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, speaks beautiful Italian. There were lots of people to give me advice on pronunciation.
Well, it's rubbed off in a very positive way, Mr. Prime Minister. It was a wonderful speech, a great apology, and it continues to resonate within the Italian community right across the country. And for that, we send you our thanks and appreciation.
Thank you, Lenny. And I'm touched at how it's resonated within the Italian community, but I'm also encouraged and find it very important how much it is resonating outside of the Italian community as well, as people with no connection to these stories are suddenly discovering these stories and realizing that those who don't remember the past are doomed to repeat it, and understanding the same kinds of fears that drove people to make mistakes 80 years ago are the same kinds of fears that could drive us to make mistakes today, and being thoughtful about that and learning from these difficult experiences is, I think, what we all hope for our country.
Thank you, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on our program today.
Always a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully in person. But if we want to do that, we remember we got to get vaccinated, get out there, get vaccinated like so many people are. That's how we get through this challenge.
I know you got your shot, and so did I.
I sure did. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny.
La via giusta è stata dimostrata dagli internati e le loro famiglie: integrità, unità, fede e fidelità al Canada. Per questo tutto il Paese è riconoscente. Grazie di cuore. Internees and their families showed the way. Integrity, solidarity, faith, and loyalty to Canada. For this, our country is ever grateful. Thank you. Merci. Grazie.